Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be taking a look through a few more of my vintage pan book collection, and this is going to be the first of the great pans. These are the ones which are sort of double sized from the regular ones, and we'll go back to great pan number 1, which is Alice in Wonderland. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's take a look. Okay then, so here is number 1, and I've always had this one for the last sort of 5 years or so in a comic bag, and I'd sort of forgotten the condition of it, and it's, on the face of it, it's not too bad a copy, but it was only when I got it out of the bag that I realised that the spine had become detached. Sort of, as you can see, and it's probably better around the back side, like so. Yeah, you can see the spines come away, and I've actually got another copy of this one, and the same things happened to that one, but this is by far the best of the two. So what I'm going to need to do is just get my brush in here, and I'm going to get some glue in there and sort of re-glue this spine back in. But it actually looks worse than it actually is. You know, it's not irreparable by any means. It's just, it looks a bit it does look a bit awful with this spine come away here. So what I'm going to just use the toothbrush to get in and get any sort of light bits out of the way, any bits of glue that have dried up. So date wise, I believe this is quite late 1940s. So it's had time to age, shall we say. Now, because it's such a big area, I'm going to put the Pritt stick like straight on. So I'm going to put some on the actual spine cover, the paper cover, to make sure that's sort of comprehensively glued. And then I'll put a bit on quite loosely onto the actual binding. But it's quite interesting because you can see that's how the book is actually made. It's made of several sort of like almost like chapters that have been glued together in the printers. So there we are. That's pretty. It's a pretty comprehensive glue bit there, which should keep this one in. So we'll do the spine first. Lay it flat. Now, some of these, possibly the tail end ones, we will be able to get away with giving them a bit of a polish because the covers will be quite glossy. But on the whole, we're going to need to be quite mindful of when these books are produced, because we may not be able to just spray some Mr. Sheen right on these. But 1947 was this first great pan. As I said, it was classed as a double volume, 2 and 6, and the different pan series are literally just down to the difference in price. That's how they're sort of changed, you know, and that's why they get released in different series numbers. Okay, brilliant. So apart from the glue, that one wasn't actually too bad. This one looks fantastic. So the big problem with the great pans is because of their size, they generally don't survive in great condition. But this one actually doesn't seem too bad. It looks sort of fairly much all right. In fact, I'd say that was a beauty. Let's have a little look right in the... I thought that was like a little bit of rubbing or something, but no, another one that's absolutely fine. So very pleased with that one. Number 3 here is Fanny by Gaslight. Always a title that makes me smile. And this one's showing a little bit more signs of aging, possibly been read a few times. It's regarded as a bit of a classic in all honesty, but it's not a book that I've ever wanted to rush out and read. But once again, he's not too bad. All of these have got quite dusty top edges, and they've never really been cleaned in that regard. But hopefully most of them won't need too much work. But look at the state of that. Look how sort of dusty and dirty that is. So they are definitely going to benefit from a clean-up. So I was recently able to visit a fantastic vintage pan collection, and it was the collection of Tim Kitchen, and Tim has got all the pans that were published pre-1970 and an awful lot that was published after that. And I filmed his collection, and it's going to be a series of 4 videos on my other channel. The first one, as I film this, has literally just gone out. That's really interesting. It's got a 2 in 6 stamp on. I've never noticed that before. This is number 5. I think I've pretty much got the first. I haven't got all the great pans, but I'm not missing loads, and I'm pretty sure I've got the first 100 or so complete. So you'll see every single one. Although when I come to do film a video of cleaning, I feel like one comic box up, and this was an entire box crammed. So I think the numbering goes up to, I don't know, 50 odd, something like that. Now what was that there I just spotted? I'm sure I just saw something in between the pages there. Yeah, look, someone's used a bit of newspaper for a guide, a bookmark rather. So this one was published 1948. Interesting, isn't it? There we are. It doesn't give any date on that little old bit of newspaper there. There's a tiny bit. You can sort of see the spine is slightly lifted, but not to warrant enough that it's going to get caught or anything, so I think we'll be okay on that one. Escape with me. Osbert Sitwell. (1948) again. So far, actually, apart from number 1, which was in a bit of a state, these have been much better condition than I remember. GP9, now that's got a little 2 on the front cover there, tiny little 2. So let's see if we can get that off. It may have been put on by a bookshop or something like that. Yeah, it's coming out quite stubborn though, actually. Yeah, that's got it. Now this was a great pan double volume, and I think, as I said, they did it. It wasn't a double volume because of the size. This was a double volume because it had some black and white stills inside, and that's what's made it more expensive and moved it up to the next price bracket. And that's when it became a great pan, a GP. So it wasn't really a double volume. It was just a more expensive volume for pan to produce. So they had to put the price up a little bit. Okay, and then we got more from this little pile here, which is the letter. This is Pan did a small series of famous plays, and I'm not really much of a fan of them. I've never sort of sat down and read a play that I can really remember, not since school anyway. And it's just not something I would ever really do. It's like probably the original insert in that, so we'll keep that there. Yep, so up to 1952. So all of those there, 1947, that's actually five years worth, if you can believe it. So what we'll do, I'm going to give these, because none of these really, I'm really reluctant, I mean, to give them a polish. See, something like that actually might benefit a little bit. These early ones, I cannot touch them, so I'm going to at least give these early ones the brush down, and that's them done, because we cannot do any more to them except give them a good brush. Now, when I think of this, literally just this morning I had someone leave a comment on the last video, and they said, Jules, what sort of brush are you using? So as you saw at the start, I just use an absolutely, look at the dust coming off that, an absolutely most basic toothbrush. Okay, so it's just a used toothbrush that anyone would have in their house, and the bristles are really good, because with a toothbrush you can sort of get into the little nooks and crannies. But he was asking specifically about this brush. So this was a brush that came in a shoe shining set, and the only markings on it says pure bristle. That is literally it, and made in China. Well, there you go. I've had it, I don't know, this is probably a 30 or 40 year old set, maybe older than that even. That was just sort of in a shoe shining set that I had. So I mean, the actual bristles themselves are just over half an inch in height, and they're fairly rough, so that you can get. It does feel like you're getting into the little, the harder to reach places, as it were, but also not causing any damage. But I found, efficiency-wise, it's actually better to do it with this brush when you're doing quite a few than individually with the toothbrush. The toothbrush is perfect for like really delicate, fiddly action, where you need to be a bit more accurate. There we are. So let's just review the last couple. I'm just see that's still more got a matte cover. I don't think we can do anything with that one. This one, however, I'm not sure the cover, hopefully you can see it's got sort of a cover luster, and I am of the opinion that probably would benefit from having a little polish. So I think what we'll do, I'll brush them as we go along, and then at the end I will give them a light polish with the Mr. Sheen, just to get off any sort of surface marks off them. But I'll only do them from GP number 10 onwards. I don't think it's going to be advisable to do it on any other lower ones. But we'll just have a look and see how we get on. Number 11 here, Lady Windermere's Fan. This is a pretty nice bright copy of this one, probably unread. Actually, that's particularly nice, isn't it? And you do that's because it's a reprint. Look, it's a reprint 1952. So I better look out for the first edition of that one. And that was probably why that was such a nice copy. Very, very easy to get, though. This one, I'm not sure if this is a first, because this was one that was very tricky to find. I had a reprint for ages, so this is now the first. But I did have the reprint for quite a while in my collection. It's not too bad. Another one of the plays. Three time plays. Well, look at that, look. Got some writing inside. Unfortunately, I won't be able to do much about that. Someone's vintage doodle. Yeah, so that's not a great one. I would put that one on my upgrade list, and I have got a bit of an upgrade list already made for these. Green Mantle, this is a famous one, isn't it, by John Buckham. Very nice. And had already at this point published. This is a reprint as well, actually. That's quite interesting. This is also a 1952, so it's also a re-release. So quite interesting. So I've got two reprints in there. But nowadays, I do collect all the different sort of covers of Pan as well. So if it's a cover I've not got, even if it's only a slight change, I will keep it in my collection, because there's far, far less Pans to collect than Penguins. So I don't mind having reprints in my collection these days, because I do enjoy the different jackets. And thankfully, by going through these quite carefully, when I edit this, I have I'll have my Pan Wants list open in another screen, and I can update as we go along. So it does serve a dual purpose, and it's certainly been very handy pinpointing Penguins that I've wanted to upgrade. This one's an absolute beauty, actually. Yeah, look at that. I Believed. Anti-communist book, that one. The 12 Olympians, Gods and Goddesses of Greece. This is another one which, it's only in this series because it's got the pictures in, which has pushed the price up, so they've had to charge a bit more on the bookstores, you know. Cases in Court, Sir Patrick Hastings. It's funny, Pan did quite a lot of these sort of true crime, court-related books. I mean, I don't think I'd ever read them now, but look at the dust off that. That's going to really benefit from a good brush in a minute. In fact, I think we'll do that now because we've got two sort of convenient stacks. So let's give these a brush. Some of these, look at the dirt on them. They're going to really, look how dirty that particular one is. So when we get to that in a minute, we'll see how it shapes up. Don't know if you saw the dust flying off there. Loads coming off this lot. So yeah, you can definitely see it's lightened it up. Although that, in actual fact, was some sort of stain by the look of it. So it didn't come up as perfectly as I would like, but still absolutely fine. And the main thing is it's an improvement over what was there to begin with. There we are. Yeah, they're all looking much better. Loyalties, John Galsworthy. Nice one. Life of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle by John Dickson Carr, himself a noted crime writer. Nice copy of that one as well. That's good. The Winslow Boy. This one's also a reprint. Interesting. It's also a reprint, that one. Three that I've got as reprints. Masters of Medicine. So the thing you notice about this period of Pan is that there's not a lot of fiction in here. It comes obviously later on, but in a lot of cases these are non-fiction titles or titles which aren't sort of the general ones. Now I've got a second copy of this one, and it looks like I've got one in priced and unpriced. This one's got some pencil markings in. So that's the first from 1954, but it hasn't got a price on the front. And this one's still a first, but it has got a price printed on the front. So it's just a little variation. And as I said, I am now picking up variations on Pan. It has got some pencil inside, so we'll try and get that out. There's like some numbering and then a date. So I need to cut down this collar on this rubber in a minute. People put the pencil markings in sometimes in the most awkward places, don't they? Anyway, there we are. So you're not seeing double, it is because it's a little vintage variation. And this is it, Pan's first ever million seller. The Dam Busters, this is their first ultimate bestseller, and that's a nice copy of this one. Now it does exist in a rare hardback edition, which was published and copies given out to staff and reps and bigger bookshops. So bookshop managers, so if anyone's got the hardback of that one, I'd be very interested. It's a real lavish publication in like a clear dust wrapper, a glassine dust wrapper. So as you would imagine, they don't turn up very often, but there's a few around out there. So if you do have one, I'd be very interested in that. It's a little bit the worse for wear. Not awful, but it's not great. It's not great. So let's just give these two piles a little brush. Lots and lots of dust coming off these, as I was expecting, to be honest. But once I've done them the once, all I have to do is give the shelves a hoover once every few months and keep the dust levels down on the ones that I've actually done. They were pretty bad. Okay, right, that's that first sort of wedge done. So let me just rearrange the camera slightly. Another Plays one here, Blithe Spirit. No Coward. This one's a little bit the worse for wear. I can almost see some dust coming off it as we're flicking through. But it's one that came through about almost 2.5 years ago now. I did buy a massive Pan book collection, and it managed to fill off a lot of gaps that were in my collection. And now that one's actually in the wrong spot, so I'll pop that over there for now because that's actually the last one. This is definitely numerically right. Yeah, so and it filled off a lot of the gaps I had in my collection, but they weren't all perfect. But I was just pleased to get so many in one hit. It had come from a collector who'd sadly passed away, and I sort of went in and bought all the Pan books and a few other bits and pieces. Now this is interesting because this is the White Rabbit. This is a really common Pan. This is the first printing of it, but it's in much worse condition than I think I would expect because it's such a common book. But maybe the first is scarce and it keeps turning up in reprint form. I mean, I don't know. But ultimately, it's not a book that's worth loads of money or anything like that, It's just there as part of my sort of vintage Pan collection. 27 there. This is another one that seems to be very common. Guy Gibson. And around this sort of time, there was obviously a real market in the UK for people to put down their war memoirs, and we will see the follow-up to one of the most famous ones, The Coldest Story. That was a massive seller for Pan books. Obviously not as big as the Dam Busters, but it sold a lot, and we will see the follow-up to that, The Latter Days of Coldest, in a minute. And it's interesting that all the publishers did it. Penguin didn't really do it, but Pan published loads of sort of war memoirs, and of course, I suppose once they'd had success with Colditz, they knew there was a market out there, and they sort of, well, I guess they probably were looking for those sorts of books, you know, to carry on. Here's yet another one, you know, and they're starting to get the really great cover art now, which Pan are famous for. And I don't think any of these war memoirs are particularly difficult to find, but I would say they're all probably hard to find in really sort of top condition, you know, and that's where you're going to want to find them. So here's another one, which I've got 2 copies of, but one of them is an absolute dog, so this is probably the first edition, I'm guessing. Yeah, so that's the first edition of that one. This one, what's this? Yeah, this is the third. So the only slight difference is that one's probably the unpriced one, and obviously it's the first printing. It's got like a 2 and 6 over sticker on of some sort, and that one's got the printed price, but it's pretty rough. So let's put the other one in first, because this one doesn't seem, on the face of it, better than the other one. But this one here, oh, it's tatty. It's just a placeholder, really. I mean, look at the state of it. In actual fact, there's not going to be a great deal that we can do with it. Put some glue down there, I suppose, just to stop that getting any worse. But it's really not a great one, in all honesty. Get my glue stick out. All right, here we go. So all I'm going to do, really, I've got my screwdriver here. I'm just going to put some glue just in that bit there, really, just to stop it, you know, coming away anymore. But it's definitely not in the greatest of shape, but at the same time, you know, it's not like a key part of my Pan book collection or anything like that. And I have got another copy, which is the reprint, which is virtually identical, so I'm not going to lose any sleep over this. Couple more slides in there. Actually, the gap goes all the way to the end, which is not ideal, but you know, doesn't need a lot on this top bit here. It just stops it getting any worse, doesn't it? Okay. Right. I think we'll give these a brush while we're here. Certainly plenty coming off these dust-wise, so as I said, they've never ever been done. They may have been, some of these as new editions would have been through a cursory cleaning period, but anything older that's been in my collection since I picked it up has never ever had this done to it, so dust coming off is incredible off these. You can probably see it. That was 4 very dusty books that look a lot better now. So that was definitely worth doing. Wow, we. Lovely. Oh, it's a mucky business. Right, that was GP 29 and slightly out of position here. 27, 28, 29, 30. There we are. Okay. I want to keep these in order, of course. And this is 32, 33, 34, 35 and 36. Right, so that's the next little batch to look at. So, the set of the sales. Alain Villiers. One of those sort of illustrated ones. Another wartime. Boldness be my friend. And of the Second World War sort of memoirs, the ones I really like are the prisoner of war escape stories. I absolutely love those. So they're the ones I most enjoy, and I've read stacks, and Pan published a lot of them. Just going to put some glue down the spine here. Yeah, Pan published an awful lot of them, and I've sort of devoured them after I read Coldies when I was sort of a teenager. I've always had sort of a soft spot for, prisoner of war escapes. The films like The Great Escape, for example, have always, been high on my sort of list of favourite films. Really just smearing some glue along the spine here. Just where it's come away slightly. And this is where, if I had proper bookbinders glue, I could just almost like with a paintbrush paint it in with a little artist paintbrush, and that would be a little bit more of an exacting way of doing it, but it does the trick, doesn't it? Without any sort of specialist tools. Anyway, I think we've comprehensively got a nice wedge of that covered now, so if we just close the book properly now, where it's come away, will now be really nice. So that's it, mission accomplished. 34 here, The Deep Blue Sea, another one in their plays series. War memoir again. A little bit the worse for wear. But we've seen worse today. Again, tiny bit of the bottom of the spine lifting off there, which I think is worth regluing. So just in there. we'll slide a little bit of glue, because that's just a sort of area which would catch. It's lovely. Easy fix. This was another one that took a little bit of time tracking down. I'm pretty sure it's the first now though. Yeah, 15p or 15 something inside, so we'll get rid of that. That's 36. So here's that one I was referring to earlier, which was a real favourite of mine, The Latter Days at Colditz. I prefer the original one, which is The Colditz Story by Pat Reed, because that's his own personal escape from Colditz. But this is still absolutely fantastic, don't get me wrong. It's really, really good, and it's a real favourite of mine. The original artwork for that still exists, sadly in private hands, but I would love to have owned that one, The Latter Days at Colditz artwork, but I don't think that's going to happen now. Wingless Victory. It's okay. Women in Antiquity, one of their sort of historical non-fiction ones again. Nice copy of that one. 7 Years in Tibet. It's another one I think that's quite hard to get in nice condition, you know. Yeah, he's alright. Children of the Jungle. Another non-fiction title. Nice copy of that one, number 41. Freedom the Spur, another great war memoir. Dobro seems to be the cover artist. Yeah, that's not too bad. So let's give these the brush. I'll get one more on top of that, which is this one, Upon the Mountain, the climbing book. Fairly rough condition, that one. That's definitely one that I'd like to upgrade. You see the bottom of the spines come away in that, but saying that, it's complete, so yeah. Really all that matters initially. Cool. Lots of dust coming off this. It's always the top edges, isn't it? Absolutely phenomenal. Incredible. crazy stuff. So I can see it glistening in the light. It's awful. Sometimes I think I need to be doing these outside when the books are really dusty, you know. Let's move those over there a minute. It does make you appreciate a really nice condition book. Okay. Right, last little batch to do, and then we'll give these a cursory polish. So let's get these last few over here now. Put the marquee here. Number 44. Alright. Dangerous Skies, Test Pilots Adventures in Peace and War. Privileged Nightmare. This is the story of Churchill's nephew and other prominent prisoners in Colditz. This is the Privileged Nightmare, the Colditz related one. I think that would make the subject of quite a nice video on my other channel. Is all of my collection of prisoner of war books, because I've got quite a run of them now across multiple publishers. Pan and Penguin did some, and Digit Books and Corgi. By no means have I got them all. In fact, I don't think there's ever been a definitive sort of list of prisoner of war paperbacks, but I certainly have quite a run. I think that would be quite an interesting video to some people. So there was pen and pencil. So I got the pencil out, but the pen is left. Cool. These last few are all really dusty again. Really, really dusty. But it's all okay. Nice one unboxing there. Very nice indeed, that. Lovely. And this last one's on football. So GP50 is what we got up to. So basically we've covered the first 50 books. There's none missing. That's the whole lot there. Not all in first edition, but they're all there. Lovely. So let's give these a brush down. And then, as I said, I think we'll finish off by giving these a cursory polish, but we'll only start from number 10, because the ones that are earlier than that have got they've got matte covers and we can't touch them. Well, the brush has done its work today. Boy, oh boy. Really got loads of dust off, but that's fantastic. That's exactly what I wanted to do, because they look so much better once they've been brushed. So let's give it a pause again there, and I'll clean up the table here a bit, and then we're going to give these a very gentle polish with the old Mr. Sheen. Okay, so I've got it all ready. I've got a nice clean bit of cloth. Got my Mr. Sheen here. Just going to spray it on the cloth, nothing actually on the books direct. I'm just going to give these a very light clean. I'm not going to get too deep into them because they're not super glossy, but something like that is going to be okay. We're going to be able to go into that without too much issue. And it's just going to take off like a little level of, see, it's already better, a little level of like surface dirt and any sort of big fingerprints and stuff on the back. And there's not many books to get through, so it'd be crazy while we're here not to do that. But those earlier ones, certainly we can't address those because they're from that period when books didn't have that level of glossiness on the front. That was an expense that publishers didn't want to have, so they just didn't do it. It was as simple as that. And we have to remember, these early ones here were being published just after the end of the Second World War, and it very much was a time of austerity. Rationing went on for years after the war in the UK, and lots of things were scarce, particularly in the realms of food. You know, I mean, the person's allowance for food was appalling, really. But book publishing, you know, paper wasn't something that was rationed per se. The publishers, once the war was up, the publishers could sort of spread their wings, as it were. And the ones which had flourished during the war, such as Penguin, for example, did very well indeed post-war. Well, they did from the off, really, you know. But at that time, that's when competitors turned up, and the biggest of them all, of course, was Pan here. But Corgi were a very big influence back then. And then you had the sort of the smaller publishers turning up. Many, you know, went on for many years. So you had the Collins Crime Club, which was going throughout the war, and then that became Fontana. And then you got the Corgi books. And there was Digit, Ace Books, Brown Watson, Hodder and Stoughton. There was an awful lot on the bookshelves, but in those days there was still no TV, so radio was the way people entertained themselves. Going to the cinema, radios and reading, they were the main sort of forms of entertainment. Nowadays, in my work, it's really quite sad because a girl came in, she's a girl I work with, and her mum had given her a big pile of like recent fiction, ladies' fiction, in sort of C format paperback, my least favourite format because it's the size of a hardback, but in a paperback. And she said, "Oh, my mum gave me these books to read, but I'm just never going to read them." She said, "I'm never ever going to read them." And I said, "Well, why not?" She said, "Well, I only read stuff that I really like, and I just don't have the time." And that was it, dismissed. And she then took the bag around, and I had a look, and it was all sort of, fairly modern authors. She took that bag around to lots of other people, said, "Anyone want any of these books?" And she couldn't give them away, and I was so surprised. I was like, wow. And, I do work with quite a batch of younger people than me, and they've just fallen out of the habit of reading. And it's such a shame that that's how things have gone these days. People have sadly fallen out of the love of reading. And I say to my boy doesn't mind reading, but he says he only reads stuff that he has to for like school, for example. His leisure time is spent, gaming or binging something on Netflix or something like that. And I think, well, that's just how things are these days, you know. So paperback, or readers in general, and paperback collectors, well, we're probably a bit of a dying breed. But I don't care. I'll never be short of something to read in my lifetime. But I enjoy all those other things as well. I love to game, and when I get the time, and I love to watch TV and films. I would class myself as a film buff. In fact, I absolutely love film and the film history, and I follow certain directors, everything that they ever put out. That's the sort of guy I am, and I like to watch the credits at the end of a TV show to know who the directors were, and you know, things like that, the producers. I am interested in that. It's just the sort of person I am, you know. But we live in such a disposable culture these days where you know, people just consume stuff and don't give it a second thought. They really don't. The last time like a big TV series came along which people really sort of watched again and again and again was probably something like Game of Thrones, which, you know, managed to transcend into like the public psyche. Everyone had heard of it, you know, and some people had seen it, some people had just dismissed it completely as something that wasn't their cup of tea, you know. Dragons, that's not for me. But there was also lots of shall we say, fantasy fans who enjoyed it as well, which was, I think, cool. But it's just as I said, just a reflection of how things are these days. Times have very much changed, and the age of enjoying a good book and getting gripped by a good book that you can't put it down, they just seem a little bit distant now. And there are, don't get me wrong, there are great authors out there who are still publishing great novels. You know, people like Stephen King, for example, his latest one. He's such a bankable writer, you know, he really is, and got his fans. As soon as he publishes anything, which is often, it'll be a bestseller. But the days of sort of the big name author, I think, are numbered. And this is coming from someone who worked in the book trade, you know, for a long time. It's just not what it was, and that's such a shame. But there you go. Such is the price of progress. And times change. It's as simple as that, you know. Times change. But I don't know. I hope with, you know, this channel and my main one, and plus the other people on YouTube and on the internet who love old paperbacks and are keeping the flame alive, I hope by doing that, you know, it's bringing perhaps a few more people into the hobby. People who didn't really look into collecting old books to begin with, who now have sort of seen what fun they can be. It's a very, very cheap hobby to get into. I mean, it really is. In fact, that does remind me, I am going to be doing a sales video on my other channel of all my spare paperbacks. It's going to be coming in 2 weeks' time. Now, my channel members and here on YouTube and Patreon supporters will be getting access a week early, and I just do it on a first come first serve basis. So there's lots and lots of cheap books from literally from £1 upwards, between, you know, £1, £1.50, £2, £2.50, £3. That's basically it. There won't be much above that, and there will be some great stuff in there to have. I'll be happy to send right around the world. If you do want first pick, you can always join the Patreon or channel members on my other channel, so you get access a whole week early, and also you get a regular video, 1 or 2 videos every week prior to them going live on YouTube. So if you'd like early access, and also the chance to get things like my spare paperbacks, of which I've got about, well, several hundred to go through on my next video, and also support the channel at the same time, then you know what to do. Head on over and become a channel member, which should be pretty cool. I have about 25, 30 people. In fact, it's probably, yeah, more like about 30 people now who are channel members. So thank you very much to all of them. I always thank them. So you'll be in the credits if you want to be. Not everyone's in the credits who supports the channel. But you'll get a credit every video on both this channel and my main one. And so you'll be immortal. And you also get the early access. So if you're looking to buy a few books for your collection, and it's all this sort of stuff, lots and lots of pounds I've got spare at the moment. So if you like these particular books, I've got them. And all these ones that you see here, there's nothing particularly valuable. I wouldn't have thought a few, that'd probably be a few pounds. But no mega ones here. The one we have missed out on, which would have been in this run, is Live and Let Die. That would have been by far the most expensive one. But that's separate. That's with my James Bond books, and I have already cleaned those separately now. I get its own dedicated video. So if you've not seen my James Bond cleaning video, it's one to go back and look at on the channel here. And these can be cleaned up almost like normal paperbacks now, because the quality of the covers, you can feel that they've got that like level of gloss on them, which is fantastic. It's what we like. Here's my favourite here. Yeah, I'd love to have the artwork there for that one, but sliding over very, very nicely. Last little batch now. So I hope you've enjoyed looking through these, the first batch of great pans. I haven't quite decided what we're doing next week. I think it's going to be my next batch of Penguin books, which is going to be the very tail end wartime Penguin books. In fact, the books that Penguin published around this sort of period themselves. So the very end of the wartime run, and also into the late sort of 1940s. So that'll be that. Then I'm going to be doing, after that, I'm going to be doing my British miscellaneous publishers. So some of the publishers that we've been talking about, like Ace Books and Arrow, ones that I don't have a massive amount of. That's going to have to be a two-part video because of how many books are included. Then I'm going to do the second part of my vintage Puffin storybooks. So that's what's going to be next. Depending on if my daughter's moved out of the spare room, I might be able to get in and pull out my Doctor Who books, which I've got waiting to be cleaned up. And I'm going to be doing a multi-part video for the Star Trek book collection. That itself is probably going to be about 3 videos. I think the Doctor Who will probably end up being 2 videos. But as far as I can tell, as far as I remember, the Doctor Who books were actually in pretty nice shape anyway to begin with. But also in that spare room is where all my large format annuals are tucked away, my large format books. And they're going to be the subject of another cleaning video. The good thing about those is they can all be polished, because generally they've got nice glossy front jackets, but they are quite big, so it's going to be quite a job pulling them all up here into the studio. But once again, it'll be really, really worth it, because they've never, in a lot of cases, they've never been cleaned since perhaps I bought them or was given them when I was a kid. So they should be pretty, they should benefit from a decent clean. So anyway, as we just clean these last few then, thanks very much for watching today. Thanks for all the support that the channel is now receiving. It's fantastic to see it growing. I don't expect it to be, breaking any YouTube records or anything, but the fact that you're all watching each week to watch me clean my vintage paperbacks and hear me rabbit on about old books is very satisfying and humbling, so thanks very much for that. Don't forget to check out my other channel, which has got sort of the main content, I would say, if you've not already, and obviously subscribe over there if you've not already done that. But yeah, thank you very much for watching today. I've enjoyed looking through these, particularly these later ones now. The early ones are a little bit stale, and there's not a lot to look at. It's just a reflection of the time, really, or when they were printed. But these later ones are great fun, and the next time we look at pans, when we continue the numbering, they're all going to be these really nice sort of dynamic and lively covers, which will be fantastic. So yeah, there we are. So have a good week, and I will see you next time in 7 days with another video. Bye.